Do you like sci-fi sex comedies? How about space battles and innuendos? And a dystopian future where men and women view each other as hostile alien species? Well, in January of the year 2000, a manga by Takeshi Mori and Kotetsu Akane began to publish in Dragon Jr. It would run for only 14 chapters, making 2 volumes, and in the fall of 2000, Gonzo would take this story and turn it into an anime. Get ready for the ridiculous extreme of a galactic gender war. This is Vandread. Technological achievement has allowed humanity to colonize the entire Milky Way galaxy, and somewhere along the way the two genders began to grow so hostile to one another that a bloody and violent gender war broke out, with men populating the planet Tarak and women populating the planet of Majer. The war propaganda is so vicious that each side views the other as a different species entirely. Our protagonist for this series is Hibiki Tokai, a third-class citizen whose whole existence has been menial labor, but he's over the boring mundanity of his existence as a factory peon. Because of a dare, the day comes when he would sneak aboard the new flagship of the men's fleet. But the military commander is a little overeager and launches the ship 2 hours early, and now he's stuck like a stowaway. Just when it looks like he's going to spend the entire time in a brig, a lucky and unlucky event occurs. Space pirates attack. Because of course there are space pirates. I mean, this is a space anime from the year 2000. There's going to be space pirates. While the men are fighting, Hibiki breaks out of his cell around the same time the pirates board the ship. After some explosions that puts Hibiki into a Lucky Lecture moment with one of the pirates, the commander of the ship separates the old half from the new half. The woman who was just groped is named Dita Labely, and she straight up calls Hibiki an alien. But Hibiki flees while the other women take men captive. And of course, Dita gives chase.
Not only are women the scariest things I've ever seen, but they don't make any sense either!
The flagship the pirates couldn't capture launches missiles at the old half of the ship, causing a speedy evacuation. Not speedy enough though, and at the point of impact, Hibiki, Dita, and 2 other women, Meira and Jura, get sucked into some kind of singularity-looking thing that warps them across the universe. The whole damn ship.
Alien power is amazing!
The core of the ship looks like it's consuming both the flagship's body and the pirate ship attached to it. Hibiki is left KO'd long enough that the women could capture him and lock him in another brig. But this time he's not alone. He's with Duello McFile, who happens to be a doctor. Eventually a group shows up to take them somewhere, and Hibiki's curiosity gets the better of him.
What do they have in there anyway?
The Hag Captain does some backstory, and the women discuss what to do with their 3 captives, because there was one more guy that came along with them. Though this is interrupted by new attackers that don't look like they're part of either the men or the women's fleet. Dita, Maya, and Jura launch a counterattack, but Dita is an idiot. Having already been pegged as a fighter, he has a moment where the Vice Captain BC berates him. But he nuts up, hops in a mech, and heads out to battle. And somehow, his mech fuses with Dita's craft, which allows them to destroy the enemy ship. But also they're sharing a cockpit. With the danger past, it's back to trying to repair the ship, while the men get a hose bath. Meanwhile, the women are investigating the remnants of their attackers, and it looks like they might have been entirely robotic. The third man, Bart, gets taken back to the bridge and explains how he is a pilot. He tries to bluster a bit, but for lack of a better term, the cockpit eats him. Then, on its own, it takes off towards a nebula. The engineer Parfait, yes really, and Duello have a brief philosophical talk about the ship and conclude that it's acting like a living organism, using the nebula to remove impurities, whatever that means. But it did leave Dita and Gascon behind.
And by the way, it's not Gasco, it's Gascon.
So Hibiki is tasked with taking the mech out to rescue them. Hibiki and Dita do the sex metaphor again and go back for Gascon. Then a debrief. These possibly robotic aliens are targeting both Tarak and Majer. So the men and women are going to have to work together if anyone wants to survive. Now that this threat is known and everyone has a moment to relax, Dita is pursuing her primary interest, the alien, along with some character and world building, including how little men and women really know about each other in this future. Also, the woman BC has been seen doing suspicious things a few times. Hibiki gets put under Gascon, who who talks about Majera and how the crew he's currently part of turned into pirates. She's one of the first women who seems to actually understand Hibiki and treat him fairly. But being in alien territory, the attacks are frequent. Hibiki once again joins the battle, but this time combines with Meira, making a different kind of mech. Now Jura seems all too eager to combine with Hibiki the next time the opportunity arises. Really is just a sex metaphor. The new ship, resulting from the fusion of the two older ships, gets the name Nirvana, and that's how this space adventure begins. The name of the series is just a portmanteau of the mechs called Vanguards and the fighter ships called Dreads, with the mains of the series being Hibiki, Dita, Maya, and Jura. Hibiki being a dopey lucky lecher trope, Dita an honest idiot, Maya who is just too serious, and Jura who is very self-centered. And all of the sex jokes are under the context that the characters don't know what sex is, so what they say isn't innuendos to them, but for us they are. For the story, there's a greater focus on the space adventure aspect than the potential rom-com of Hibiki. But if it wasn't for the underlying theme that used Ecchi as comedy, Vandread would get boring fast. It's only a mild component to the space odyssey, but the setting of the prolonged gender war leaving both sides ignorant to each other is as much a critical plot device as it is a major limiting factor for the story. The writers did plenty with the characters, giving both history and growth to them over the course of the series, kind of, which in a way leaves the show feeling oddly too long for its main plot, but also too short for its B-plots, especially considering the characters are space pirates. Also considering there aren't really any other aliens per se in the series, it's just the men and the women and the antagonist third faction. And since the setting takes place post-galactic colonization, most events involve abandoned colony ships or forgotten colonies. Though with some small encounters like a shady guy and his orangutan, a cult, and finding out that there are other colonies in the galaxy that don't share the same propaganda as Turok and Majer do. And we do eventually get an answer for the robots and what happened to Earth. But there's also a lot more going on in the galaxy outside of the Turok-Majer conflict and the Earth problem. As for the series length itself, 2 seasons of 13 episodes each by Gonzo, and their easily identifiable style of 2D with CG for the space battles, which is actually pretty good for a 2002 production. The designs themselves are actually fairly unique, aside from the Vanguards. Humanoid-shaped mechs aren't really that unique, but the Dread ships all have unique designs. When Hibiki and Dita combo, it makes a humanoid mech much like you'd see from something like Gundam or Macross. The Hibiki-Maya combo makes something that looks like a bird or wyvern, and the Hibiki-Yura combo makes, well...
It's a crab.
But it's a crab with lasers. One parallel you'll probably draw is between Vandread and Mass Effect, not because of the space rom-com nature of the show, but because of the Earth plotline. It's eventually revealed that the third faction is an autonomous system whose purpose is to visit colonies around the galaxy and harvest humans for their pieces for Earth. They end up with the name Harvesters. Sounds a lot like Reapers, right? Especially with the way the Harvesters learn and evolve as they fight the Nirvana. Well, Vandread predates Mass Effect by 5 years, with the first game coming out in 2007. But the comparison is still there. And the split between the Harvesters and the interpersonal relationships really hurts the show. The time constraint of the show doesn't allow for any significant depth in the ecchi rom-com aspect of the series, and this is even more true in the second season where the focus is almost entirely on the Harvester plotline. The second season really does have a stronger story, but that's because it largely backseats the fanservice and only gives a little bit of time to the character and relationship growth. Nor does it give any significant world building to either Turok or Majer. In a way, Vandread feels too short for what it is, given it has the entire galaxy to play off of. Constraining the entire series to just dealing with Earth feels like a waste. Also, there's not a lot of building on Dita or Yura. They're just who they are, with no real explanation or story behind it. Which would be fine for Yura. She's openly vain and displays that a lot of what she does is for her own desires. There could be a deeper story behind it, but for that kind of character, it's a better opportunity to allow for growth forward rather than exposition backwards. Dita, on the other hand, really needs an explanation for why she is how she is. She's got this fixation on everyone always being happy to the point that she might not even understand or experience empathy. And then there's her obsession with aliens, to the point that she calls Hibiki Mr. Alien throughout the entire show. It even has an open ending, so maybe a remake or revival could happen, but I don't think it will. It wasn't extremely popular when it was new. And that's Vandread. I am the NBT. This has been the Noble Weeaboo. Like or don't, sub or don't. Vandread is an above average series. It's got its charm to the point that you'll probably enjoy the characters, but it also plays out its plot so it doesn't leave any pressing threads to follow. It really is just a space opera with light fan service. And it could have used more fan service, to be honest, especially the second season, but that's just my opinion. And thank you for watching.